All right, let's do this. So, you guys know me. I kind of go online by het. I have about an hour with you tonight. I don't have a whole bunch of time. It's ads up front again, Linux. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that. So let's do some labs. We'll get in here and we do this theme. We have this theme that I think works pretty well, where we talk about what a Linux admin needs to know about whatever topic we're on, right? Like, obviously, we want to know as much as we can about a topic and understand how to do whatever we need to with it. But what is a Linux admin? What are they focused on within a topic? So we're going to do a little bit of some hands-on labs, and then as we do that, we will go ahead and kind of talk about what I think you need to know as we go through it, right? So Boris, how's it going? We're not working too super hard right now. We're just gonna do some labs. I got a little bit of time. The wife's got a friend downstairs, so I can hear them talking. But hopefully, it's not too distracting for you guys. I could close my door if I need to, but hold on. Let's pull this up. And yeah, looks like we're broadcasting. Everything should be good. Crash Systems got abused by a software dev a few days ago. Their hard-coded error message said I needed one version of library, but their framework said I needed a different one. I had to read the source. Yeah, Crash. That's a problem. I mean, that's when we get down into troubleshooting. There's a lot of you got to trust an error message, and then if an error message isn't right, then you definitely have to go dig in on kind of what's going on. Now you guys can't hear anything. Yeah, I also, you know what? It's funny. I started doing closed captioning to get more people able to be involved with the stream. And then a few days ago, or maybe even a few weeks ago now, I realized that you guys can just turn on closed captioning inside of Twitch. So I'm like, I don't even think you guys necessarily need that anymore. So we'll do that. We'll do the labs a little bit, and the lab that I'm working on right now, I'll link to people that want to do it with me. So here it is on the Twitch side, and here it is on the YouTube side. This lab is free. It's on Killer Coda, and it says your security operations team has informed you that there's an alert. So where do we check for user alerts on logins, right? That's something we might want to know. And I say go ahead and connect. A bunch of unknown users has gone off for Node 01. So there's alerts triggering in our system. Also, if you guys hear my keyboard, I got a new keyboard today because my other one, I think I told you guys, like my F and my J were worn down and I couldn't feel them with my fingers anymore. So it was really messing up my typing. Because I don't look down at my hands when I type. I don't think most of you probably do, but you feel for home row keys, and I couldn't feel anymore. And that was part of the reason my typing's been so bad the last month or so, is I couldn't feel them on either side. But now I got this. I don't know. I think it looks pretty good. Pretty cool little, and it's a little more mechanical, so it's a bit louder. Yeah, it's gonna be a little louder, I think. But less than T Enzo Bear, how's it going, guys? It'll be a little more loud than normal, but it's not because I'm trying to be cool or anything. We're just gonna do it and see how we go. There's Paul, Bobby, Tom. How's it going? So we're in here again. This is a lab that some of you guys have done with me a few times, but we're just gonna kind of add some color as we go. So we're gonna do SSH to node 01, right? Get over to that system, and then we're going to do something like tail-20 on varlog auth.log. So we go over here and we see a bunch of stuff. So where do we check for alerts on user logins? Typically in Ubuntu, it's something like varlog auth.log. And then in our rel style systems, we're typically doing something like varlog secure. That tends to be the places that we go. Yeah, Linux developer, it doesn't bother me. Like, I know people that just can't stand it, especially in the office and stuff, but I can just tune stuff out. Like, while I'm working, if somebody's like on a call or something, they're tic-tacking away, it doesn't bug me any. Also, I'm the last one in my family to get a mechanical keyboard because my wife has a really nice, she bought a purple one. Well, I bought a purple one for her a while back, so she's got like a nice, I don't like the excessive, but they don't bother me. Yeah, and you know what? The other keyboard I had just run its course, and it was only like maybe a $10 keyboard. It was just something that had come, I had gotten it from somewhere. So anyways, this one was probably like a $30 one. I didn't go super high end, but it still got like the little red. I think they're called red switches or something. I don't know what the colors mean on the switches. I've never really dug into that kind of stuff. Yeah. So okay, so we see that there's some invalid users. So that's a lot to read, right? So I might change up what I'm doing here, and I like to do stuff like this. I'll now that I've seen what's going on, I'll grep for something like invalid, and I'll just say, okay, I see that there's a suspect 1, suspect 2, suspect 3, and then real user that have attempted to log into my system. Now, we've talked about this before as well, but I'm going to point out, just because these ones are suspect and just because this one says real user, does that have any bearing on whether or not these are valid users or not? Like, does the fact that this is suspect, 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 and this one real mean that this one is real and that these ones are fake, or anything? Or is it all just the same? Is it all 4 of these are a problem and we need to go figure out what the problem is? And that's something to think about. Actually, while you think about that, let me pull up here real quick on our logs. This is my, whoops. Yeah, let's see if I can get in here. Admin. In my home lab here. These are all the failed logins for invalid users, right? I could go just to invalid users on my system. These are the invalid users that have tried to get into my system in the last, 6 hours or whatever, as opposed to failed, which may be failed against real users. This is invalid users, so these users don't exist. And I would say, it's irrelevant if a user sounds good, like Ubuntu sounds good if maybe I was on an Ubuntu system, but it's not a real user in my system. Print, testy, deploy, git. So people were running through probably some set of bot networks or something, git, dev, stream, dev, ES for Elasticsearch, deploy, user1, Debian, support, test, pi, right? These very common types of users on a system. You want to know how to pull secure log into Prometheus? It's like this. This is all you need. That's it. Let me go drop it in Discord. That's all you need. You need a config that looks like this. That's how you scrape varlog secure out of Promtail. Right there. Use a tool like... That's it. It doesn't go to Prometheus. No, Boris. This doesn't go to Prometheus. It goes to Loki. You probably sent it. That's not... Prometheus isn't really good for individual line log type stuff. It's key value. You could probably stuff log lines into Prometheus. It just wouldn't do that. Yeah. This is, look here. I'll put this up in our Discord, guys. We hit 3,500 people last night, so that's kind of cool. So if you're on our Discord, we hit 3,500 people. Hold on, let's go. I'll just throw this in like DevOps. This is the Promtail config to send over rel like configs. This is a Promtail config to send over rel-like configs to your Loki instance. All right, so that's it. Yeah, so if you didn't have that, there you go. I've shown that on stream and stuff, and that's probably up in the Discord somewhere. But if you need it, yeah, there you go. All right, so we're back over here. We're doing the lab, right? We're walking through this lab. Does anybody else need the lab? I posted it a little while ago, but I'll repost it if you guys need. It's free on Killer Coda. But we're over here and we're walking through these steps and we're making sure that we understand what does a Linux admin need to extrapolate out of here. Obviously, we need to be able to do the work, right? Like, guys, we got to be able to do the work. Like, we got to be able to get... I can't just say... I guess I could just say, get at the command line and learn everything, right? Like, I guess I could just say that. But that wouldn't help most of you very much. That wouldn't help hardly anybody, probably. So what I'm showing you is, like, you've got to be able to do all these discrete steps over here. Like, the lab is very important. But also, up here, these are the things that we're kind of pulling out that are, like, the things that you kind of need to know. So, what is an invalid user. Well, so what an invalid user would be if I did an ID for suspect 1, there's no user. If I grep suspect 1 from Etsy Pass WD, there's no value. So what's an invalid user? ID username gives no such user. Grep username from Etsy Pass WD finds nothing, right? So that's what an invalid user is to your system. It's a user that the system doesn't know about, right? It is, so there's a mapping in your systems of usernames to, there's a mapping of the username that you have to the user ID, and that is also going to be important. However, when we're looking at logging in as users, we're using the username, and that username mapping will always be shown by ID or by looking in Etsy Pass WD. If it's not there, your system's not going to map to it. That's all there is to it. There's no other way in Linux that I know of to map these things. And that's actually kind of a nice thing. Like, I never have to go look. I've never in all my career had to go anywhere but Etsy Pass WD to see if a user is mapped to a UID. Similarly, if I were just to, if I just did a user add -m Scott, right? And then I did and then I did an ID Scott. Watch this. And then I do an ls-lh on home Scott. I'll have a home, ls-ld on home Scott, right? He'll have that. Now I'm going to use a user del Scott, and now I'm not going to have a user anymore. But hold on, that file still exists, so it's mapped back to what had been my user ID. Does that make sure? Stealth user. Yeah, I would say. I mean, there's a nobody user that could be anything, but then nobody tends to be really locked down, really like no permissions, no real capability or anything. We really only use the nobody user to allow things to be written, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I can't think of any way to hide that kind of stuff. Your system will check that in real time. There's no caching. Your system does not cache anything it knows about users. It literally will check its Etsy Pass WD. Alternatively, it can go and it can use a trust authority, and it can check against LDAP and stuff. And there's some different things there. We'd have to have an LDAP server up to work on that. Maybe I'll work into one of these labs, like a simple little server that gets stood up, and then we can connect to it and see that. So that'll be good. Okay. So we come down here. We looked for all these things. We're going to exit out of that node, and we're going to take all of those invalid users and throw them into root users, and then we're going to echo root users, and that's going to allow us to pass this first part of the lab. So now we're going to go over, and it says that the one user that is supposed to exist is real user. So maybe you checked with your security team and they tell you, so now they tell you that that's a real user account. And you can make that user account. So how do you add the real user, right? User add -m real user, right? This will make the user. So we can check on our system and we see real user is there. And on the other system, on node 01, we do not see real user as a user. So we're going to just SSH over there and make that user. Now I'm doing something here. If you guys haven't seen this before, a lot of times you're used to just SSHing to like node 01 and then exiting out. Like that's a very common workflow type thing for a Linux admin, Linux engineer. But did you guys know you could do, and not everybody knows this, you can say SSH to node 01 and execute a command and then leave there and come back. So I never left, like my shell of like control right here. I'm on control plane. I went to node 01. I did the uptime command and I came back. So that is like, this is an important thing to understand when you start to talk about like how we loop over things and how we hit multiple. Yeah, you could use Ansible to do that kind of stuff as well. But my point is, if you've never seen that type of workflow, it's kind of useful to see. So now, if I could SSH to node 01 and do an uptime on my system, and maybe there were a bunch of other systems, I can go hit a bunch of those with a loop. And I've shown you guys how those loops kind of look before, if you've been hanging out. So now it says we normally wouldn't do this part as some LDAP or outside authority would do it, but let's go ahead and set the password for real user. So we're going to set the password for real user. Now this isn't going to echo out to the screen, but we're going to set their password to 1234. So 1234, 1234. All right. So how do you add the real user? You do that. How do you set the real user? How do you set the real user password? And that is passwd real user, just like that, right? These are important things to kind of know if you've never done it, right? Like some people have never added a user in a Linux box. Maybe you've been on Linux boxes and you've been around Linux your time in the industry, or you've messed around with it, but you maybe never added or removed users, right? So you made a password, and then you may want to know, like, how do you check that the real user password has been set? How might you do that? Well, you should be able to do passwd, I think it's -l real user. Let's see. For sure you can see this one. CHAGE will show you that it's been set. It was set today, right? Yep, it was set today, which that's tomorrow, but it's in UTC time, so that's kind of good. Bobby, times there way to add password requirements. Yeah, Bobby, the place you add the password requirements are all down in down in PAMD. So I'll do you hold on? So let me back up real quick. Do you guys want to see that real quick? Because I'll pull that up and I'll show you where you can go set those. And you can set them for required minimum. You can require upper, lowercase numbers, special characters, a certain number of repeating, a certain length of password. Yeah, okay. So if you were completely lost and you were like, Scott, I don't remember where you went, I'm going to give you guys the links for it, okay? So this is where I would go. This is where I would go. Yeah, for complexity of passwords, this is where I would go. I would go to my DISA STIGs, right? And and this is if you don't have this yet. I'm gonna pull these up because I do have them, but I'm gonna link these to you. Whoops, there's a period on the end of that one, but that's fine. And I would go pull down the version for what I had. So if I had like RHEL, you know, and I was doing like RHEL 8 or RHEL 9, that's where I would go pull down my my STIG stuff, right? So here's some other stuff. So Red Hat Enterprise Linux STIG for version 9. Now I'm already going to have them, so you're going to see me open a tool here in a second. And again, I just want you guys to see where you can go download the tool. The tool that you need to download if you want to do the same thing I'm doing is the STIG Viewer. So you would go to the STIG Viewer, and then 3 is the newer one, and you could download the STIG Viewer for Windows or Linux, depending on what you're using, right? Okay, so that's a level set of what I'm about to show you here, right? This is like if you were like, Scott, where would I go find what you're about to show me, right? Oh, and then also I'll go pull this up here in a second. But all right, so I'm gonna pull up my. Hold on, in my system here, where do I have it? It's not that far back. SC Linux, not SC Linux. So this is my STIG Viewer right here. I'm just pulling this up. STIG Viewer is going to pop up. This is going to be bright. Guys, I apologize for it being bright. I can't help it. Oh, we put in that ugly dark mode, if you guys remember. Um, this was actually still up on my system from yesterday when we were looking at it. We're going to remove all the filters, and I'm going to put a filter in here for password. And it's going to give me all the password related. And I'm going to find the one. Hold on. I want to find the value of the one that I want. Complexity. So here we go. So we're going to go to complexity. And these are going to be all the password complexity ones. Again, I'm showing you guys where to go look this up. But then down here is you would add these values basically to these lines. So I'm gonna pull my little browser or my putty up over this while we're here, and I'm gonna say, okay, if I wanted to add a password complexity to like my lab, so this is my lab systems. I sh to like Rocky. Let's go to like Rocky 10, right? So we're in the Rocky 10 box. He's not really doing anything, and we cd to etsy-pam.d. And in here, there's a file called systemauth. Where's that? There's systemauth. Now just more real quick systemauth. And here's a bunch of stuff around the passwords, right? And what it says is I have to add the following line to etsy-pam.d systemauth, which is password required pam password quality.so retry 3. So what is this trying to do? This is trying to set the value of retry to 0 or greater than 3 or missing. So I want to set the retry option to 3. Let's go find another one. I want to set the password quality complexity rules to be on. So this will set them to be on PAM password quality, right? Then down here, we can say password quality is there. Okay, so that's set. Hold on. And then in there, hold on, we need a complexity of the root account. So enforce for root. Okay. Hold on. I'm just looking for them. So in here, in the Etsy security password quality.conf, we can say that the L credit must be -1. So this is to enforce complexity by requiring at least one lowercase to be used by setting the L credit option to -1, meaning if it's not there, it's going to fail this. So this is where we would go look. So it's Etsy security PW quality. So wait, real quick though, you might say, Scott, you said it was in Etsy pam.d. You did have to do those other ones that I showed you to turn on password quality. If you didn't do that, password quality wouldn't be on, and this wouldn't matter. So Etsy security, and then password. Quality.conf .d if I want to go down in there, right? And then I don't have anything set in there. Let's see. Actually, this is more. What's in here? Okay, so now it says that configuration for system-wide password quality limits. So let's look at all the things that we can set. Must not be character. So how many characters in the new password must not be present in the old password? Oh, that one's wild, right? And then minimum acceptable size of the new password, minimum length 8. Now these are all commented out, so you could add to these. D credit, how many digits does it need, right? U credit, how many uppercase, how many lowercase, how many other characters you have. So I'm trying to contrast here that there's like a lot of places that you could go look, but for me, if I want to know like to a security standard, I'll go look at the STIGs, which is the guidelines, and then that will inform me where to go change it in the system where I am both, because sometimes there's little hacky ways to change things where you can like do stuff at the command line, but I don't want to bypass the STIGs right here above me. I want the STIGs to be correct so that I know that when I do a scan, my check is going to pass, or some government, right? Because I deal with all kinds of ISSOs, right? Information System Security Officers, for a whole bunch of different government contracts. And to keep everything above board, I will do things the way that this thing tells me to, right? But it's also, this also is going to work. This is also going to be the thing. But nothing here triggers until you have this turned on. If you don't have the password quality, PAM PW quality SO in your PAM.d, your PAM is your pluggable authentication modules, they won't know to go check that file, and any password will pass. Does that kind of make sense? So you could go in here. This would be like what we call screaming at trees. This does nothing until you do this. So anyways, hopefully that's, shows you guys a little bit of stuff. So, there's, I would say, other things to know here is your PAM system. Make sure this is set. So how do you, has it been set? That was CHAGE-L on username, and then setting password complexity rules, and it was look in there to make sure that's on, and then it's set them in this one here. I'll put these notes, by the way, these notes will be in the Discord after, but this is where, whoops. Oh, whoops. This is where you would set them in. Boom. Yeah, so this is one of these things where, like, yeah, unless somebody's ever shown you it or you've ever had to do it, you probably never see, or some people have never seen that, right? But this is the technical way. This is the way that will pass like a government audit. This is the way that sets it to be lower and upper. And this one right here, where's the one? Oh God, this one is the worst. This right here, this guy, this is the chonky boy. This one is the one that pisses me off more than any other one that I know. DevOps said, can I arrange these in a playlist? I will do that. I will take this one and the one before it, which was just the I had this services one. I'll go grab these ones and put them in a playlist. Yeah, it'll be called, yeah, we'll call it something like system administration or something. Yeah, I could do that. I could put that in the playlist. I'll put that on my hard notes. Make playlist. Oh, all right. Make playlist. Oh, what? Can I show you guys the one? This is the one. Hold on, where's that? This is the one that will bug you the most. This one. And you say, how? Why would this one bug me so much? Well, let me show you. Right? Let's look at this password real quick. It's got an uppercase, right? Do you guys see that? Followed by 3 lowercase. That will be fine. If max class repeat, which by the way over here, max let's get this out of the way. Max class repeat is, let's go max. This guy right here is set to 4. Okay? I want you guys to remember that number 4 and this diabolical thing called max class repeat. This one's going to bug you because you've got 15 characters. Let's say you've got to be at a minimum of 15 characters. Let's just say, and I think this one's under that. But this capital, that's uppercase, 3 lowercase, 1 uppercase, 1 lower, cool. 1 upper, 1 lower, cool. 1 upper, 4 lower. Password fails right on this this O right here. Because it's the max characters in the same class that repeat. And I say craziness. Do you guys get what I'm saying? The max class repeat is 4. So within the class, it has to be. So these would be fine because it's uppercase class, lowercase class 3, uppercase that. Oh, it's man. This one will piss you off because you're like, oh, I got one. I got a good one. I got a passphrase and I got the. Nope, you messed up. You had too many uppercases or too many numbers or. This one bugs me a lot. Like I had to change the way I generated passwords because of this one. And I only ran into this one in the last year in some government projects where they have the max class repeat on. And that is one of the STIG requirements. You can't have more than 4. It's actually after 3 that it errors. So yeah. So if it's set to 4, it's after 3. So really this one would fail on the W. So kind of annoying. And you probably don't even think about how many times you've done that until you go and play. Have you guys all seen that little password game where it just keeps adding bullshit to your password? there's like a little game where it says like how far can you go, and you just keep adding. They keep adding rules to the password. Like all the numbers in your password before the 16th character need to add up to under 71 or something. Hard to think of a password that will pass from. Yeah, that's part of the problem. That's one of these things where we say, you know, security is cool, but security is also going to slow down productivity, because now a user needs to remember their password, then they need to reset their password, then they can only reset their password so many times in a day, then users start writing down their passwords, and now we've defeated the purpose of whatever we did, right? Which is always one of the complaints of this. So, all right, let's get back to the lab. The lab is here. Where are we at here? Hold on. Showing you guys the wrong stuff. Where's my lab at? Here we go. Here's our lab. So we made that user and we checked him to see if he was good. And then we came down here and what's something else we might want to know? We're going to rerun. We're going to do something we don't normally do, guys, right here. We're going to wipe a password. We're going to wipe a log file. You don't normally ever wipe a log file as a Linux admin or a Linux engineer. But maybe if you just want a nice clean one, this is something that you could do. So we wipe the file, and we're going to rerun our little script for about a minute. It takes about, oh yeah, it says about 25 seconds to a minute. This is going to log in as all those users again, and it's going to fail on all of the users. Why is it going to fail on the users? Well, because root still can't log in. It doesn't know the password, but it's going to fail. And now let's grep again all the invalid users. And we have suspect 1, suspect 2, suspect 3 as invalid users. But real user, who we created up here, we created this user, he is now no longer an invalid user. Now, he still has an error in his login. Like if we look at failed, let's grep -I just for now. No? I guess we'll just do that. Yeah, real user not allowed because account is locked. Well, there we go. He's not even able to get in. Oh, because we did a password -L on him, and we locked him. I got to remember how to unlock the password, but we locked it. So that's a different error than we normally see. So how do you check the real password's been changed? CHAGE-L. Maybe we wanted to. Let's make this one 6, and that one can be 7, and that can be 8. Let's make this one is how would you lock the user account? And I did that on accident, but passwd-L real user. That locked that user out, right? Now we need to do man. Let's SSH to node 01. And let's say, let's just man pass WD real quick, and we see that -L locked the user, right? And then can we unlock the user? -U. So we do pass WD-U real user. And then we see that he's no longer locked. And yeah. How would you lock the user account? And maybe we'll just make this a sub question there and say, how would you unlock the user account? And that would be passwd-U real user. And then how would you find that out? You would go read the man pages, right? And I just look for a lock, and I go, okay, lock, locked, unlocked. We can set a number of warning days and a number of max days that a password remains valid. We can set some of the stuff here. Yeah. Never fear. Here's the thing for Boris. How to remember it all. Don't try to remember it all. Guys, I don't remember hardly anything. You'd probably be surprised at all the things I forget. But, I mean, shoot, ask my wife. She's always making fun of me for forgetting stuff. But, that being said, know where to reference it. I don't remember a bunch of this stuff. I don't remember all the time. I'll go reference it. And how do I reference it? I read the man pages. I know the command exists, but I don't know all the capacity of the command. And very similar to that Etsy, the passwd, and the change stuff, I don't remember all that. I know where to go reference it in my stigs, because the stigs are the standard anyways, so I'll go reference stuff as I need. Never fill your head with things that can be looked up. I think that's an old Linux saying or Unix saying. Somebody said that long ago. Excuse me. So we've now checked, and it says the real user is now set up, and we want to key him to be able to log in. So we're going to do a little thing. So setting up password complexity rules, sure. And then the question might be, this is going to bug me. I gotta change it. I gotta change it, guys. I was trying to not do it, but now I have to. So, user comes to you. Can you generate a user key? Or can you generate a RSA key pair? Right? Asymmetric keying. And can you generate a key that we can use for this user? Or sometimes you get asked to generate a key for a user. It'll come in as a ticket or something, or a user will call and ask, and then if you just become the user, you can generate the key. But this is how you do it, right? So we're going to say on control plane, as the root user, we know who we are, like that. Can I generate a key? And we're going to call the key. We're not going to overwrite our key. If we overwrite this key, we won't be able to get into the other system anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, no, I want to use root. Whoops. I want to use root.ssh, still in there, real user RSA. Now the name of the key doesn't actually matter here, but we'll do no passphrase and it'll generate what our key looks like. Now what happened when we did that is two keys were generated, ls-l on root.ssh, and the two keys that we just made were our real user underscore RSA, which is a private key. You keep your private key close, you never show it to anybody. And that is 600, so that makes sense. Only I can read it, only root can read it. Nobody else can read it, cool. And then there's the public version of this key, which is 644, which means it can be spread far and wide. Anybody can read it, right? Anybody that wants to can read this file, so that's cool. You can cat the files out and read them. You would never do what I'm about to do right now, except you can do it in a lab environment. Oh, we're not down in there. Right? You can just cat it out and see it. Now, you would normally not show this to anybody because you say, would somebody write that out? Yeah, somebody might. Somebody might take that from a stream and write it out and then get into your home lab or something if you showed them. Sure. Now, this is in a lab environment up on Killer Coda, so it'll be gone in 24 minutes, right? So I don't care. But you would normally never show your private key to anybody, even like this, right? Okay, so then we've got this public version of that. And that one can be shared far and wide, but where do we share it to? Well, we can copy it over with this cool little tool. The SSH copy ID is the coolest, easiest way to do it. But let's remember that that's there, and then let's say I want to copy that over to the real user over there, and I need their password to log in, so 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to copy that over, and then let's just see if we can SSH over as that user. And we could. So we SSH'd over with that key as the real user to node 01, and we saw that we were on node 01 as the real user. So I can do that same thing, and I can say, well, no, go ahead and send me over there. And then I'll CD to my home real user .ssh, and in here there should be an authorized keys. And this right here, authorized keys right here, is the exact same value as up there. So I could have either copied it and pushed it over there, or I could have used that SSH copy ID, which greatly simplifies the things that we used to do. But can you generate an RSA key pair? Yes, SSH keygen, right? SSH dash keygen. Can you find where that was generated? Yeah, should be typically down in like root.ssh and then real user RSA in our case, right? do you know the public, the private key? And yeah, we had that right here. The where's that? It was right here. So there's the public key, which can be shared far and wide, .pub, and the private key, which we will keep close to us and never show to anybody. Could you change those names? Sure. I wouldn't, though. I would always use .pub and no file system extension. That's the kind of common standard one. And could you change their names? Absolutely, but most of us just keep the names the same because it just makes a lot more sense. It's easier to track down what's happening with a key. All right. So there you go. If you do this lab, you generated keys and pushed them over. And then it says here, look at you learning Linux security. You looked at logs for the login issues and then created a user and keys to verify connectivity. So do you know which one was the public versus private? Yeah. Right here. Public, private. Let's do it this way. That was the private one. And then this was the there's the private one, or the public and the private one. So private up here with those permissions. By the way, if you ever change these permissions, SSH will ignore. So this is a troubleshooting thing right here. Let's get out of this user. Let's clear the screen. pwd root.sh. If I chmod 644 real user RSA. So now my key is more readable, and now I'm going to try to go do this. Won't work. So if the user set private key to verbose or to open, how would you see that? Well, you see it right there. You'll get it. Read the message when SSH refuses to use the key, right? And it'll look like this, unprotected key file. But really, if you just look at this for even a second, you go, well, 0644 is what it is. I'm not going to load it. So then you just go. So it ignored the key file, wanted a password. We're going to ignore that. We're going to set it back to 600. And you can play with this, but I'll tell you, unless you go all the way back to 600 or some variation of that, this won't work. What I mean by that is there have to be 0 permission sets for your group or your everyone else. Now that connection will just work again. So this is one of these things where it's like we like to check how something works, right? Like as admins and engineers, I like to know, okay, here's a smooth flow of everything. Have you guys ever seen like those videos where they'll like punch a hole in something and then you'll see like what they call like a laminar flow or whatever, where the oil or water comes out of a thing and it looks like it's a solid object because of how it's moving? Have you guys ever seen that? It's kind of the same thing in my mind. I want everything to flow in the system and work. But we also want to be able to find when things are like discordant, when they're not flowing the way that they should, or there's like, you know, a little beaver dam showing up and making some of it like spin around or whatever. We want to see the way the system is not working, but only in like I wouldn't want to know all 10 million ways this could fail, but I would want to know like what are some common failures, maybe like the most 5 common failures here, and that would be a common one. Maybe a user messed with their key. They have full permit. This is the user's key if it's in their directory. If they've made it in their home directory and they're asking you questions about it, they probably mucked with their key, and you're probably going to have to come down as the, you know, admin root adult and go fix this for them. And, you know, again, users are doing other smart things. We'll let our devs and our research scientists, who I mostly deal with, go do other things, and we'll fix this stuff for them. But we need to understand how the keys work. When I was talking about this the other day with the key, oh, you guys didn't see this. My college students, When I did this the other day, because I had my college students generating keys in my class, I pulled up my home keys and I shook them like this. I don't have my keys up here. Yeah, I've taken my truck since then. But anyways, I was shaking my home keys like this, and I said, "Now, what do you guys think the chances are that my home key, my little ring of like maybe like 10 or 15 keys or whatever, is going to work on any of your homes? Or if I were to push this little button for my Chevy truck, that it would open up the doors to your vehicle? What do you guys think the chances of that are?" And it's probably pretty low. And it's the same thing with these keys. There's not a chance that they're mathematically similar with another key set. So, all right. Passphrase is usually required for private keys. No, Bobby, but passphrase is sometimes required for certain STIG activities. You're not allowed to use keys with no passphrase. I'm not as, I mean, I never set the passphrase. You can if you wanted to. I don't normally do that. But in some environments, there are requirements that some environments don't even allow you to use keys. Some government environments that I work in, you can't even use keys. Got to use passwords everywhere. It's a real hassle. It'll push you to use Ansible if you don't, because I sometimes tell you guys, like, one of the cool things about Ansible is I can put in the pass. If you have a rule that I have to log into every box as my user and then become root, I can do that with Ansible programmatically. And that's actually the original use case with why I used Ansible back in like 2013. It was like very early on. It was a tool that I could use to jump into a bunch of nodes, become root, do an activity, jump back to my user and leave. Because the system did not allow you to come in as root remotely. That's a big no-no in a lot of federal systems. And then, not only that, but I couldn't, so you had to be your user first and then sudo up. And you had to do that on each box, and that would be untenable for most systems and connections. So, all right. Anyways, so that's all done. That was our first lab, and we're kind of in the subject of what a Linux admin needs to know about security. So that was attempted user login, and then fixing the user in a way that hopefully works pretty good. So let's do lab 2, and lab 2 will be, this will be bright for a second. Go do lab 2, which is sudo. Yeah, disable root via SSH everywhere. Absolutely. All right, so the next one will be down here, and it's going to be attempted sudo. Put something like this in here. That's a nice, easy way to remember when we're going to the next lab. We'll see if we get to lab 3, because the wife's downstairs visiting with one of her friends. So I've got a little bit of time before I hang out with the wife for the night. So we were hanging out earlier, but we typically hang out together to close out the night, right? Like we hang out sometimes when she first gets off work, and then we'll hang out later as well. All right, so this one is... let me link this to people that want to do it with me. Again, you guys that have been around... Whoops. What is this? What was that? Control C, Control V. Whoops. No, I already did it. I'm on the wrong lab. I need to be up here. Did I link it to you guys? Here is lab 2. Anyone wants to do lab 2 with me? All right. This one says your security operations team has informed you that an alert for sudo activity has happened on a server. Investigate the sudo logs to see what the user is attempting to do. Okay. So what? I mean, aside from security team telling me, what would indicate that there's a sudo attempt on a server? So I'm going to run this, and it says, echo, I am patient, I can wait 60 seconds. Alternatively, by the way, you could just do like I did and just sit around and talk for a few minutes. Make that a little bigger, so hopefully you guys can see that. And then it says here, check the logs where Ubuntu keeps sudo requests. This may take up to 60 seconds to populate with bad sudo requests. So we're just going to wait a minute. We'll give it a minute for sudo. Because the little cron script that I wrote for this lab goes every minute. So we'll let that run for a second here. So what indicates there's a sudo attempt? But by the way, while we're waiting for that, does everybody know what a sudo attempt is? It is an attempt to elevate your privileges on a Linux machine. It is an attempt to, as what most people would think, is to do something as though they were the root user, as though they were the administrator, right, of the system. We are going to, okay, so we've slept. And then now if we go look in authlog, we'll see a whole bunch of bad user not in sudoers. So what indicates that there's a sudo attempt? Bad user not in sudoers. Typically, yeah. Not in sudoers is one. That's a pretty good one. Traffic King said, question, when user tries to sudo but doesn't have permission, where does the event get recorded? So in a Ubuntu system, so Ubuntu style system, it's over in var log auth.log. In your rel style systems, it's in var log secure. Those are the two locations. And then you're going to see something like bad user not in sudoers, or whatever the user is. So what indicates that there is a sudo attempt on a box? It's going to be that line or some variation of that line. Doesn't a failure get logged? Yeah, failure's logged right here. User not in sudoers. Oh yeah, a failed password attempt is logged. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So we see user not in sudoers, right? We see a few different errors there. And then we're also going to look in syslog as well. And syslog also tells us, if we go look in syslog a little bit. Where's my syslog? Yeah, here's my syslog stuff. And it should tell me, let's just grep bad user from everything. And in syslog, we should also see that these commands are what the commands are that they're trying to do. If they're trying to execute them from, in this case, cron. So you can see what bad user's trying to do, right? But he doesn't have any permissions to do that. And this can get passed to Loki and trigger alerts. Can't? Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100% this can trigger alerts. Oh, absolutely. Over in Loki. So, bad user not in sudoers. What's another thing we want to know then? So eventually you'll see that line, bad users not in sudoers. Yep. Indicates a user is trying to sudo and use elevated permissions that they do not have. We can either remove user access permissions or grant them the correct permissions. This line is how you know you can continue with the lab. So once you see this, you can continue with the lab. Whenever you see the bad user not in sudoers, you can continue on with the rest of the lab. If you want to see how I'm running that, it's cron tab -L, right? That's how I'm running that. And what bad user is trying to do is trying to list root's home directory and then become the root user. It's trying to do two things. So, what are, and I'm going to ask you guys this. This is the, what are the valid, well, let me ask it this way, because I don't have it down in here anywhere. All right, we can continue on with the lab. Bad user is supposed to have permissions they're trying to sudo to, so let's give them those permissions. What are the valid reasons? Let me think of this here. I'm trying to think of the right way to ask a question that I've asked a lot here before when we've looked at this, but what are two what are two reasons that you may see user not in sudoers? Which reasons you may see user in var or in your logs? Hold on. What are two valid reasons that users, like your devs and your people that are on the system doing things, probably down in the development environments that are theirs, they're rightfully their servers, like they own them as far as the company's concerned, but you're the admin that controls permissions to them. they may have valid reasons to try to do sudo attempts. And what are those reasons? What are valid reasons that users might run into, like, permissions problems? Anybody think of those? I've said these before. These are the ones that I've run into a lot in my career. I guess there's probably other ones too, but let's say and these are valid reasons. There's probably a whole bunch of invalid reasons, like, oh, the user just wants to do something they shouldn't. Well, that's an invalid reason. That there's no enterprise reason, no corporate reason to give them those permissions. So you don't. If you don't like being the bad guy, well, I'll tell you what, you'll see a lot of, like, salty Linux and Unix users over the years, and the reason a lot of them are salty is because they get asked to give people permissions, and they give those people permissions, and then they have to clean up the just shit that happens to the servers. And I hate to have to say it that way, but that's the only way to say it. People will royally jack up your servers, and you'll be responsible for fixing it for permissions that you told management you didn't want to give them. But this is the thing. Locked out accounts. No, yeah, and then so let me I'll just tell you guys the reasons that I've seen. If you guys have other ones, we'll add more. But it's user attempting to do something they think they should be able to. So user tries to become root on a box that's in their dev environment, and they had been told, well, if you're a dev and you're down in one of your test and environments down in the QA, you should be able to do these permissions. That's a valid reason. That's a valid thing that they may, that they should maybe have it. And another one is user is attempting to run a, like, vendor script to install some tool, and the script is trying to sudo. And I always try to find a good example. I think Splunk has a good one out there. Does Splunk have it? Hold on, I don't see it here. I think Datadog might have it too, or maybe New Relic. But Splunk does not need to be installed as root, but you need to give it some permissions. Let's see if they have it. No. I thought Splunk was one that had it. I was looking to see... No. Alright. Let's see. Is it New Relic, maybe? Let's see if they have it. You want to install it? What's next? Potential spam. Trying to call me at almost 8 at night. A lot of sudos. A lot of sudos. Too many sudos. Let's see if... So it needs to have these sudo permissions here. Come on. Nope. They don't have it. I'm trying to think. I need to find a good one of these as an example to show you guys. But some vendors will give you the list, and then those devs will give that to you, or you'll go find the notes or whatever, and then it's super easy to install. I can't think of a good one right off. I always thought New Relic had it, and I thought Splunk had it too. But these are valid reasons that some user may be just trying to do something on a box, right? So how do we give sudo permissions? And really, there's two ways that I'm used to doing this. Hey, thanks for the follow. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Bray, we are not working too hard right now. But how do you give sudo permissions? Well, you could do them directly in etc sudoers. But the way that I prefer is down in etc sudoers.d and then, you know, some file, right? And typically it's the name. And anything in the .d directory, is appended on the end of the actual config file. And you might say, Scott, how do you know that? Well, if we cat etc sudoers, one of the things right here is it says include dir etc sudoers.d. Now, this is gonna confuse people, so I wanna tell you guys this. There's only this place right here, and I think in post config. So for postfix, those are the only two places. Oh, there's one other place in a shebang file where normally you look at this and you go comment, 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 comment. These are all comments, right? That's how we know what's a comment. It's got a pound sign at the front. This is not a comment. This is a real valid active part of this file right here. Excuse me. And you might say, but Scott, it's got a comment in front of it. It's got the universal octothorpe that we use when we want to show that something's commented. And I say, yep, sorry guys, it's just a rule you need to know. That is not commented out. That is active. So just so you guys know. I mean, we normally use it inside of all bash configs. There are some config files are different. You will see in like sendmail.mc and some of these other ones, you'll get stuff like that. But this one for sure is one that will be, this is active right here. If you want to comment this out, I would put a comment in a space. I think comment next to each other will work as well, but I put a comment in space so we know that it's done. All right. So how do we give permissions? That's the way we do it. You probably won't see that changed in a company, but some people like to remove that. Some people only want to use a big old fat sudoers file. I don't like doing that. I like using sudoers.d, and then I can use Ansible to drop stuff in. When I mentioned that last time with our Linux group, the guys asked me, hey, could you show that? And I wrote up, I showed back here in our, so this is in our Ansible stuff. Hold on. When we did this a while back, I showed it. I thought I showed it. That's our yum.conf. That's our system check. Load balancer. Somebody did some load balancer stuff. Maybe I don't have it in there. I thought I did. If I don't want to go searching around for it right now, but if it's not up there, if anybody's looking for it, let me know and I'll put it back up there. My way of fixing that. But we can very quickly. This really use. How do we give sudo permissions? How do we check a user's permissions? This one's big. This is probably one of the most important things that I learned for systems work like this, right? So I have a user called bad user. So if I do ID bad user, we can see information about him. I'll just clear screen. ID bad user. He's there. And if I do a sudo -l-U bad user, I can see his permissions. So how do we check a user's permissions? Sudo -l-U bad user. He has no permissions right now. He cannot execute anything. But we want to give him some permissions. So if we look at etc sudoers in just a simple fashion, we can see that members of this admin group can become root. They can actually do everything on the system. And members of the sudo group can also do anything. And then also root as an individual user, right? This is the group designator, the percentage sign. But this is a root. And he is he's a individual user, right? As opposed to these groups. So let's just add the user, bad user, to the group sudo. And then let's go check his permissions again. And he has now inherited all the permissions that come with being in that sudo group. And how can I check? I can say grep bad user from etc group. I can ID bad user. And I can see now that he's got the secondary group of sudo. And then again, my favorite one, sudo -l-U right there. So this is one of these things. If you've not, I don't want to say struggled, but if you've never used sudo to give permissions before, we just gave bad user all the ability to do everything. Is that what we wanted? Who knows? So we have given, how do we give sudo permissions? We can give, so what do we mean by scope in permissions? We can give only the permissions that we intend to the user. So let's do that. How do we scope his permissions down? See, we gave him everything. Bad user runs this box. Let's hope this is a dev box, not a production box, because now bad user can reboot the box. He can change what's mounted. He can do literally anything that maybe a user shouldn't be able to do, right? And we don't necessarily want our devs to do that. So let's go look at var log auth, and we now see that bad user's working, but he's got incorrect passwords because we haven't set his passwords yet. And then down here, he's still having problems. The user exists, but he's not working because he doesn't have permissions yet. So we can go look at everything, and we can see that he is still failing to get in. But if we set his password to 1234, which is what the system is trying to do, and then we wait a little bit, we'll see that the user is now able to, we're not going to see these errors anymore, right? These errors are going to start going away. Where are they at? Because the user is going to be able to log in. We're not going to see the failures anymore. Where we see all these failures with incorrect passwords, we're not going to see those anymore here in a second. Yeah, I think, so what I tell people is users don't think about the implications of stuff they're doing. Like, if you give a dev root in a Linux box, they will go out and read a blog post, a Medium or some, DigitalOcean blog post. Nothing wrong with that. I read those. Sometimes I read them on stream, right? Cool DigitalOcean on how to do this certain thing in Kafka. And we'll have a little Kafka set up, and then we'll log stuff over to it. And it's like, oh, that's cool. I figured out from somebody else's notes. I followed along, and then I built something that works for my use case. Cool. The problem with users in an environment is this. If they go and install a tool, and they add a repository, and they do all this other stuff, when they're done, like, they treat the system like it's a little workshop, which is fine. They don't clean up after themselves. So, like, that dev box now has an extra repository on it. It's probably got packages that are changed that maybe we didn't want to change, in even down in a dev environment. And when I go to that dev box later, and maybe we're patching because that server is going to stay up for a while, I have to go clean all of that stuff out to be able to apply patches to that server. And that's just one of the many nightmares, but that is one of the types of nightmares that are out there. They can also mount to a bunch of stuff, and then the box won't boot properly because it's not mounting to things that are there. They don't set permissions on systemctl properly, so systemd doesn't turn things on. And I'm not trying to shit on users. I'm just saying that's not what they do every day. They're just reading stuff and applying stuff and getting it to work in their area of engineering. They're not worried about the system's implications. That's kind of our part, right? So what I would just tell you is, if you're giving users permissions, do this other thing and scope down what they can do, so then you can kind of keep track of what they're doing, right? You can kind of know what's changed in that environment. Because almost universally, when this process to build this goes forward and goes into a pipeline, we're not going to give them those sudo permissions. We're going to give a service account sudo permissions to just the things that need to work with that installer, or that build is going to happen before it pushes forward. And we are only going to give the permissions for exactly the thing that they need. So our dev environment is a place to test what we need as far as permissions to get something running. And then when we go into prod, no user ever touches it. It is a service account. It is sudo built in to that system only for that install, and then it's taken away, and then we never have to touch it again. So it's like we very much like, and you guys probably think, like, as I talk about this stuff sometimes, that I'm a bit crazy, and that's fine. But as an engineer, you have to have control of systems. You have to physically keep control of your systems, because the more you let them go out of your control, how can I be responsible for, like, how you treated your car last night? If you went and drove around the city and crashed into shit all over the place, how am I responsible the next morning, right? Well, I'm still responsible because I'm the systems admin. You know, I'm the systems engineer that built it all, and I got to get into a pipeline to work for later. Traffic King said, "Question: How is it decided to provide dev environments as VMs versus containers?" Um, I would only, so from my side of things, I only ever give dev environments as virtual machines. I wouldn't ever build because if somebody's going to build a container, they're going to build it for themselves typically. They're going to run through the Packer process and do all that themselves. They're going to package up their software into it. So I wouldn't ever provide a dev environment as a container. I would give somebody a place to deploy their own containers, and then they would build their containers. Once they've built them to the way that they want, we would push them up to like an image repository. We would do whatever like Trivy or other scanning we wanted to against that container to make sure that it was at the software levels that are acceptable for us. We would update it if we need to. We would get it right there. And then that would become a artifact of the build. And that artifact would then move up into, a staging area. And then that could be pulled from things that are being deployed into prod or whatever. That would become something that was part of the actual system. But no, I would only for like build environments on my side of things, I only ever give VMs if I'm giving those kind of systems. I don't give containers like that, I guess. I give an environment to play with containers if somebody wants to, I guess. All right. So now we've given the user all commands, right? User's got the whole system. But let's not do that. Let's apply what's called the rule of least privilege. So we can give permissions that we enter to the user. This is called the rule of least privilege. You need to know that if you're going to take a security test of any type. You need to know what the rule of least privilege is. You probably should be able to talk to that if you're ever going to go for an interview for something like this. But let's remove the user bad user from, let's remove his group, right? And if we do this, we see he doesn't have any permissions anymore. And now we're going to make a little file down in sudoers that looks like this. Whoops. All it does is say that bad user with no password, he doesn't have to put in his password, can do user bin ls against the root's home directory, that's /root, and he can do user bin su, which is substitute user to any or to only the root user. KVM or Proxmox, I don't use either of those, Traffic King. So most of the guys use Proxmox. I use XCPNG, so I haven't used Proxmox. Real quick, we're going to say, where did I get these long paths from? Well, here's where you would get those long paths. And then now look at bad user, and he can only do these two things. And I say, how do these permissions compare to what was given when bad user was just put in the sudoers group? Well, I should have a question mark there. Why might this type of permission be more secure but harder to maintain? It's because now you got to do each and every permission. And if you've used Ansible, how might Ansible help deploy permissions to etc sudoers.d? I'm pretty sure I have that up here somewhere. Hold on. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay, here it is. This was the start of a fix that I had done. This is to fix the cluster F that was sudoers in my cluster. This is the start of the fix anyways. So we moved sudoers to a backup. Then we checked that it was there. And then we checked what was what we expect. And then if the check was 1, meaning the file was not there, then we're going to copy that over to sudoers outdated. So if that file was not there, we would copy it there, and then we would say to include etc sudoers.d, which this is a different way that you can do that include if you want. And then you can back up sudoers so that we have the original sudoers around. File to, yeah. Oh, this is actually dropping it in there. So that's dropping the new sudoers in there. I don't know why I say that's a backup, because it's not a backup. Oh, it's because I copied this and didn't change the name. So that's not completely right. Who didn't like this? Yeah, this was a little diddle. This fixes your sudoers problems if you've got a big old massive sudoers in your environment. So anyways, that code's up on there if you want to play with it. So, all right, that lab is done. So look at you learning Linux. You looked at sudo attempts and then you fix user permissions so that you can give those permissions. Lab 3. What's lab 3? Well, let's see if, hold on, I gotta see if I have time. Did the wife text me yet? She was supposed to text me when her friend left, but I don't hear them downstairs anymore. Hold on a second. That doesn't mean that they've left, though. All right. Let's go look at some more links. So here's where we would go next if we are going to stick around and do it. We would do an updating of a golden image. So this would be, you've got a system image and you want to set it to be more correct going forward so that all systems that pull that golden image are going to be good. It's too quiet. Yeah, it is too quiet. I don't hear the wife. But, all right. But also, we haven't checked on Ranger. How's Ranger doing? His bed should be here soon, guys. His bed, we're getting him a third bed. And I'm going to put it against that wall because it kind of looks like a little couch. So Ranger's going to get another bed, and then we'll move all this stuff over. So he'll probably lay a little further over that way than normal, but that's Ranger for you. All right. Let me get this out of the way. Also, I'm playing like scary music. I'm playing spooky music is what I'm playing. Over here. Let's go change it. Let's change it to something. How's this sound? Yeah. Oh no, I like this stuff. We'll go chill. How's that? That sounds pretty alright. So we can update a golden image, build a chroot jail, set up UFW and ports, our syslog. I got 5 more of these to do. We're not going to get to them all tonight because I do have to get off here soon. But let me... what's our time at? Oh, by the way, I haven't really been showing this too much, but we've got more stuff coming up. We've got a study group for the admin guys that want to kind of review that old admin course. We got our normal Prolog weekly meeting on Saturday. And then the Linux sysadmin course is going to start again, so it'll be the second run of it on March 22nd. So we're going to get ready to really start hammering that again. That'll go March, April, May, June, probably into the beginning of July because it's a 16-week course. So pretty long course. We're going to restart it again in March for people that want to do it with me. So I think it'll be valuable for people even if you've done it before. But for sure, if you didn't do it before and you want to learn something, come and do that stuff. So, yeah, I probably got to get off of here because I know the wife's going to be done soon. It's 8 here, so we'll probably get off of here. But how about this? I will promise you guys we'll be on tomorrow. I'll keep this series going because I think people kind of like this series or like the way that we're doing it. I'll throw what I have up for now in the Discord, and then I'll just keep adding to it. I always throw it in what's called the meeting notes section, so you guys can find it down there. We don't have enough people to raid, so we won't raid tonight on Twitch, but I definitely appreciate everybody coming, and I will see you guys that want to hang out again tomorrow.